What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another brand new installment of Renegades Reviews, exclusively here, as always, on the Casa D18 Studios channel. I am the Renegade JJ Williams, and today we begin our month of trilogies. And in all honesty, there is no trilogy that I could see that is worthy of kicking off a month of trilogies other than the Back to the Future trilogy. And today, seeing as how we're starting, we're going to jump right into the original Back to the Future from 1985. Jesus Christ, that sounds like such a long time ago. Renegade was just a wee and not even 10 years old yet when this film came out. What's going on, everybody? Thank you for joining me here today once again for another brand new Renegades Reviews. Had to break out my McFly puffy vest here for this trilogy. And I'm going to try and be a little bit different for this month of trilogies. You know, if I have something that really relates to the movie, I'm going to try to bring it in and utilize it to my advantage, man, because I'm sure you guys are getting bored of seeing me in my teespring.com/Jeff Meacham merchandise or my regular colored t-shirts, you know, but trying to do a little something different this month. Anyways, enough about me. We're here to talk about quite possibly the greatest trilogy that is not the original Star Wars trilogy, the Back to the Future trilogy. And the Star Wars one, you can't even really call it trilogy anymore because now it's an entire saga that encompasses like 11 films if you count in Rogue One and Solo, which are part of the timeline but are standalones. So, but I digress. At the time, the best trilogy that wasn't the original Star Wars trilogy. Our film takes place in 1985. Marty McFly is your typical California teenager living in the fictitious town of Hill Valley, California. Marty's got a beautiful girlfriend named Jennifer, but the rest of his family is kind of portrayed as losers. His father, George, is constantly bullied by his supervisor, Biff Tannen. His mother, Lorraine, is depressed, overweight, alcoholic. His older siblings, Dave and Linda, are professional and social failures. For Christ's sake, Dave is working at a fast food joint, and he's easily in his mid-20s, way older than Marty. The school principal considers Marty a slacker and tells him that no McFly ever amounted to anything in the history of Hill Valley. Of course, Marty feels that the future is going to change, and that gives us our first inkling into what is to come in the grand scale of things. His band has an audition for the upcoming school dance, and the judges reject the band because they're too loud. The irony of the scene, of course, I'm sure most of you that have seen this film 100 times get the joke within this, but the judge that declares the band too loud is none other than Huey Lewis, while Marty's band is playing The Power of Love, the theme song from the movie which Huey Lewis recorded. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Marty tells Jennifer that he fears becoming like his parents, despite his ambitions. That evening, Marty goes to the Twin Pines Mall to meet his friend, scientist and inventor, Dr. Emmett L. Brown. And yes, there is I at the Twin Pines Mall. Gotta get that little shameless graphic up in there. Doc reveals to Marty that he built a time machine into a DeLorean, which is powered by plutonium, which he stole from Libyan terrorists. And as Doc begins inputting dates into the time machine, such as the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the birth of Christ, he randomly enters the date November 5th, 1955, which was the date that he fell off the edge of his toilet while hanging a clock, bumped his head, and when he came to, came up with the vision of the flux capacitor, which is what makes time travel possible. After Doc and Marty do a little test run with Doc's dog Einstein, the Libyans show up, wanting revenge on Doc for stealing their plutonium. The Libyans shoot down Doc and chase Marty around the Twin Pines Mall parking lot. Marty attempts to go 90, but when he hits 88 miles per hour, he ends up getting transported to 1955 Hill Valley. Marty crashes into and destroys a pine tree upon his entrance, and once he's safe, he hides the DeLorean and he begins to explore the town, unaware of anything that could happen with him being there. Marty encounters his father as a teenager, discovers that Biff has been bullying George all his lives. Marty follows George and finds him spying on his future mom, Lorraine, by watching her change in her room from a tree across the street. He's a peeping Tom. When George falls out of the tree into the street, into the path of an oncoming car, Marty dashes to save him and gets knocked unconscious himself by the incoming vehicle. When Marty comes to, he finds himself in Lorraine's bedroom. Lorraine is infatuated with him. It's the Florence Nightingale effect that a lot of nurses end up getting on their patients when they take care of them for too long. And she begins calling Marty Calvin, as in Calvin Klein, because the name is written all over his underwear. And back in the 80s, people used to label their underwear, especially if they were going to go on trips or something, so that if for some reason it got lost, you could ID it. So 1950s Lorraine, this is like the norm. So she sees Calvin Klein written all over his underwear. She assumes his name is Calvin Klein. Marty goes ahead and he adopts the alias throughout his time in 1955 so as to not give away who he really is. After an awkward dinner with Lorraine's family, he continues his search for Doc. He finds his house and he attempts to convince Doc that he is from the future, but Doc doesn't believe him. As far as anyone's concerned, time travel is reserved for sci-fi movies and comic books at this point. It isn't until he explains to Doc how he got the bump on his head, which had just occurred that day. So in reality, Doc probably hadn't had a chance to tell anybody about it yet. That makes Doc believe, okay, there's something going on here. I need to talk to you. We need to try to figure something out here. Marty shows Doc the video documentation of the experiment, and Doc cannot believe, first of all, that he made something that worked, and he made something that uses 1.21 gigawatts of power to operate it. Doc tells Marty that only a bolt of lightning is able to generate that type of power, but you never know when it'll strike. Marty pulls out a flyer that he was given in 1985 and tells Doc that now we do. Because back in 1955, the clock tower was struck by lightning, and it hasn't worked since. They gave Marty a whole spiel about trying to save the clock tower. So now they know when and where the lightning will strike. They just need to harness it. Marty's siblings begin to fade from a picture that he's carrying in his wallet due to the fact that Marty accidentally interfered with George meeting Lorraine and messing up the whole story of how they fell in love. Marty attempts to try and get them together, but Lorraine just becomes more and more enamored with Marty throughout the whole process. Meanwhile, Biff is becoming more and more frustrated with Calvin Klein because he keeps getting closer to Lorraine, who he feels is his girl. And after a car skateboard chase around the town square, Biff crashes his car into a truck full of manure, the first of many times that this gag would be repeated. Lorraine asks Marty to the Enchantment Under the Sea dance, and Marty is kind of surprised that nobody has asked her because he's been trying to get George to ask her, even going as far as dressing up as an invader from space, calling himself Darth Vader from the planet Vulcan, while pumping the guitar riffs of Edward Van Halen through his headphones at George. And just, she's so enamored with Calvin, nobody else will do for her at this moment. Marty accepts the invitation to the dance, and he conceives a plan with George in order to get Lorraine to like him. The plan is for Marty to take advantage of her and have George come and save the day. Plan gets messed up, however, when Biff crashes the festivities, looking to get revenge on Calvin Klein for the damage he caused to his car, $300 worth. Once removing Marty from the car, Biff's gang throws Marty into an open trunk and slams it shut, while Biff proceeds to try and take liberties with Lorraine. The car belongs to the band performing at the school dance, Marvin Berry and the Starlighters. And the keys just happen to be in the trunk with Marty. The band leader and lead guitarist is able to pop the trunk, but he slices his hand in the process. Meanwhile, George shows up to where he's supposed to be at the car, delivers his line, "Hey you, get your damn hands off her," only to find Biff in there instead of Marty. Biff bullies George and almost breaks his arm. Lorraine tries to save the day, but Biff pie faces her and pushes her down on her butt. George gets pissed. He reaches back and he cold cocks Biff. The first time in his life he has stood up to Biff, knocks him out with one shot. Grateful for his actions, Lorraine takes his arm and they walk into the dance together. Marty tells the band, "Man, you guys have to get on stage. You have to play. This is where they kiss for the first time." But their leader, Marvin's hand is cut, and they won't play without Marvin unless Marty knows somebody who plays guitar. Remember, Marty auditioned for the band dance back in his own time. So, of course, he knows how to play. Marty steps in and they play Earth Angel on the stage as George and Lorraine share a dance. However, the bullying of George isn't over yet. Another kid tries to come in and steal Lorraine from George because George has just been this pushover his entire life. But George pushes that kid down on his butt as well, comes in, caresses Lorraine's face, and the two finally share their first kiss. After the song, Marty tries to leave, but the band wants one more song, something that really cooks. So Marty plays Johnny Be Good. And as Marty plays, Marvin calls his cousin Chuck Berry because Chuck has been looking for a new sound. And Marvin's like, listen to this. Of course, the irony of this scene, for those of you that are still young enough that you don't get the irony of the scene, is the fact that Chuck Berry is the one who wrote and originally recorded Johnny Be Good. So Marvin Berry, the cousin of Chuck Berry, is playing to Chuck Berry the song that he wrote and recorded as Marty is playing it on stage. Marty gets carried away and acknowledges that the kids at the dance might not be ready for all of that just yet, but their kids are going to love it. Marty returns to the courthouse to meet Doc, and Doc discovers a note in his coat pocket from Marty attempting to warn him about the future. Doc destroys the note, saying no man should know too much about his density. I mean destiny. Marty changes the settings in the DeLorean, give him some extra time arriving back in 1985. That way he can warn Doc in person. Gives him about 10 more minutes, which I've always kind of found odd that he only gave him 10 minutes. Why not give himself a little bit more time? You know, I mean, if you know that your best friend is about to die, is 10 minutes really all that you want with them before they die? Nah, you want like a half hour, an hour longer. But again, I digress. Marty drives the DeLorean, hits the cable just as the clock tower is struck by lightning, electrifying the cable, sending him back to 1985. Once he arrives back home, the starter fails to work. So Marty has to run to the Lone Pine Mall. He arrives right as Doc is shot by the Libyans and watches himself disappear in the DeLorean as the Libyans crash the van. Marty runs to Doc's side, and he begins to grieve at the sight of his friend, when out of nowhere, Doc sits up. He shows Marty that he pieced the letter back together and wore a bulletproof vest. Doc takes Marty home, and then he heads off to time travel 30 years into the future. Sounds like a nice round number. Marty wakes up the next morning, and at first he thinks it's all a dream, until he comes out of his bedroom and he notices that things have significantly changed. George is now a confident, successful author with his new book just arriving in the mail. His mother, Lorraine, is fit and happy. His siblings, Dave and Linda, are successful. And now Biff is an auto detailer who no longer bullies George. Instead, he's being shown working for George, doing his cars. It's just an amazing turn of events, you know, how one little action can change your future. The whole moral and thread that's weaved throughout all these movies. Marty and Jennifer reunite after the experience that Marty's had, and then Doc shows up. He tells them that they need to come with him to the future to do something about their kids. And Marty tells Doc that he needs to back up because he doesn't have enough road to get up to 88. Doc replies with the ever popular line, "Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads as our film ends and the DeLorean flies off.
We interrupt this episode of Renegades Reviews for an important announcement about
merchandising.
Merchandising? What's that?
Merchandising. Come, I'll show you. Merchandising, where the real money's made.
Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network for all the t-shirts you see here from the West Coast professor, Jeff Meacham himself. You can get shirts for the Jeff Meacham Network, Talk Wrestling, as well as the red and gold Meachamania shirts. And while you're there, don't forget to get your shirts of the Casa D18 Studios Brotherhood, the Dads on Wrestling shirt, the Renegade JJ Williams, Statboy Sports Bar, and the hashtag StatBoyApproved shirt. Make sure you go over to teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network and score your shirts today.
Such an amazing film. I can't even tell you how many times I have seen this film, this trilogy, in its entirety from start to finish. And if there's one man that I know on this planet that has seen this film as much as I have, if not more than me, it is the man I'm going to bring in here. Yeah, I always get tossed up through these things. Anyways, the man, the myth, the legend, the owner, operator, CEO of his own empire, the Jeff Meacham Network. Jeff Meacham, thank you for joining me today at the Hill Valley Courthouse. Beware the thunder above. You know, the thunder rolls and the lightning strikes, good sir. Be careful, because we don't want to end up in 1955. 2015, because that was definitely a freaking disappointment, let alone the Old West. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining me today.
And I don't want to end up anywhere near where that video was shot, because that bitch was crazy. She shot one guy out of his truck. I don't want to have nobody else mess with me today. Anyway, first of all, there are the pictures I forgot to send you last night as I was doing my review of the movie. So there are those. It's funny that you say I've seen it as many times as you, if not more. You may only have more on me due to sheer number of years ahead of me watching it. Because like you said, you were not quite 10. I had just turned 2. So I know I haven't seen it the number of years that you've seen it by any means. But yes, the minute I was able to get my hands on any copy I could, I did. I don't recall owning them on VHS that I definitely did. My head, but I know for a fact that I did rent them from my local Blockbuster, because that's how old we are.
Jesus.
Yeah, I rented the VHSs from Blockbuster. Let that sink in, kids, because that didn't happen for very long when Blockbuster was toward the end of their run. I worked there. I know. I even rented the first one, or the first couple ones, from the video. What was the guy's name? Well, we had a Video Depot out here, but it wasn't. I forget the name of the local guy that we had that was like a sponsor for my Little League team for like 5 years, whatever. Anyway, he had it across the street. We had. I got that. I got WrestleMania 4, all kinds of stuff, all from him. Anyway, I absolutely adore these movies, and I thank you greatly for correcting the whole Star Wars trilogy is a better trilogy, because, as you mentioned, Star Wars has evolved into this freaking empire of movies and TV shows, and it's got its own little hub on Disney Plus now, because the mouse done bought that shit. So, good on them. But this will always be, in the eyes of Gale and Zemeckis, 3 movies. That's it. The animated series is what it is, and it's crap. The video,
like I told you last night in private, off camera,
right?
Back to the Future, the animated series, is like House Party 4. Nobody acknowledges it.
That's right. Yeah, it was licensed by the team, by Universal, but the Bobs were like, all right, do some educational with it, and we got Bill Nye the Science Guy out of it. So there you go, it works out.
I was going to say, that is the best thing and the legacy of the animated series is we were introduced to Bill Nye the Science Guy.
That's it. Other than that, yeah. The ride, however, is good. And I am mortified to this day that it does not exist anywhere in person anywhere. You have to have the DVD Blu-ray set or you can't experience the ride live anymore. It's very frustrating.
Yep.
But this is where it all started. This movie, it's funny. Like I told you earlier, I spent the night watching the trilogy. I spent the night watching the ride, and then I watched the documentary about restoring the DeLorean, which I am going to go see hopefully soon. And then the actual Kickstarter documentary about the trilogy. This movie, I found out through the course of my research, the screenplay for this movie is taught at USC Film School. Like, this is like considered the best screenplay in the history of screenplays.
It's definitely up there.
It is so good. It's ridiculous how good this screenplay is. Yeah. And Zemeckis goes, it's not really a perfect movie. There could be, one or two, blurred shots or whatever, but the screenplay is really good. And he even said that in the documentary. It's like, it's hysterical here and just flat out like, there could be blurry shots or whatever, but the screenplay is fabulous.
It's hilarious because every couple years or so, I'll see things circulate on Facebook and it'll be like 40 reasons why Back to the Future makes absolutely no sense. And it's like, it's a sci-fi time travel movie.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of stuff in it that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
No.
So many sci-fi time travel movies that came after this took things that were laid out in Back to the Future and made it a part of time travel lore.
Yeah, exactly.
Space-time continuum. Don't mess with your other selves.
Nope.
Don't try and do anything that could alter the future. I mean, hell, Avengers Endgame is probably the most recent one that Paul Rudd, Ant-Man, even made jokes about.
Yeah.
Back to the Future, Bill and Ted, like all these other time travel movies.
Exactly. Yeah, it's when you have the MCU referencing you, you've made it, or so that was you can say or whatever. But the first one, the very first movie, which we're talking about today, it borders, one of I forget who it was in the documentary, but he mentions, there's so much exposition. You learn so much crap in the first 30 minutes of this movie, just so you know what the hell you're seeing in the last 20. Like, okay. Oh, that's why. Oh, got it. Okay, now I understand. Like, if you're going in blind the first time, you're like, why are we learning all this shit? Why are we having been told? Who cares what the times? Okay, got it. Okay, yeah. It all, and that's the thing. It didn't have to be a sequel. It didn't have to be a trilogy. This movie, yes, there's an ending where you get in the car and you fly away and whatever. But in the original movie, not the VHS that came later, there is no to be continued. It's just done. That's it.
Yeah.
Movie's over, credits.
I was just going to say, this movie was originally a standalone, but it did so great at the box office. Right. They were like, well, all right, we already know where they're headed because we set it up. Let's do a sequel.
Right.
And then they filmed 2 and 3 at the same time.
Literally back to back. Like they and God bless, and we'll get into 2 and 3 the next couple of days here. But God bless Zemeckis, man. He shot 2 and then went up to Monument Valley to do 3. So he spent the days up there in the desert, filming the western parts for 3 and then flying back to Burbank to edit 2. Like, he got about as much sleep in 2 and 3 as Marty did, as Michael J. Fox did in part 1. Because he was doing that Family Ties back to back all day, every day. Like, how I don't know how Michael did that, knowing what he's dealing with now. I don't know how he survived the filming of part 1. Like, my goodness, that had to be a breakneck schedule. Granted, he's a young pup, so I get it.
I was just gonna say, number one, youth is a virtue.
Yeah, no kidding.
Marty was young, and there's so many things that I was able to do in my 20s that's hard for me to do in my 40s.
Yeah. So,
and then he hadn't been diagnosed with Parkinson's yet.
Right.
So he didn't have any limitations. He was just a young, strapping 20-something-year-old kid.
Yeah. And it's it's amazing how, as popular as he was from Family Ties, and let's not undersell Family Ties. Family Ties
Oh
will
no,
whooping that ass.
love Family Ties.
But he knew he had something. They had something when they had the premiere over in England, and his seat was next to Princess Diana. Like, imagine being a 20-something-year-old, kid, for lack of a better term, and you're basically on a date with the Princess of Wales. He even says in the documentary, I was a yawn and arm reach away from a date with Princess Di. And he's like, and then he goes, and then I realized very soon I had to pee. He sat there for 2 hours because you can't say I have to go use a loo because you can't talk to them unless they talk to you. You can't, turn your back on them and walk out because, that's obviously he had to like moonwalk out of there if you wanted to get out of there. So he sat there in agony for 2 hours because Princess Di's next to him. And he goes, but it was great. She was smoking hot. It's like, damn it, Michael, pervert. Oh God. But I just love this movie. I put it up on social media last night as I was watching these. That moment at the dance where George pie-faced the other guy off of Lorraine and takes her in his arms, and they kiss, and the music rises, and Marvin singing Earth Angel. It makes me cry, like openly weep, like I'm watching Hogan's Hall of Fame induction all over again. Like I'm a blubbering idiot because it's such a beautiful moment. It's so well written. It's so well synchronized as far as the sound and the music and everything. It's so well done. And Marty's like, oh shit, I'm awake. Here we go. And he's playing, and he gets oh look, my hand works. It like everything about that scene is just perfect. Like that's my favorite scene of the whole movie. I shit you not.
Even the song choice is just so beautiful because Earth Angel is such an underrated song from the 50s.
Yes.
I don't know if that was a Zemeckis call, a Gale call, or a Spielberg call, but whoever came up with that song for that scene, bravo.
Now, I'm not sure who was the original writer behind Earth Angel, but I do know that one of our my all-time favorites, Frankie Valli, made a cut of it. So if they heard Frankie's version and decided to do it, it wouldn't surprise me because Frankie can sing the phone book and make me want to buy a damn record. So, I'm okay with that. And I had said, and I have tried to parlay into my romantic life, if anything such ever exists again, that's going to be played at my wedding because that song is it has to be. And if they do play it at my wedding, I swear to God, I'm borrowing somebody's puffy ass vest and I'm throwing it on. I'm doing the whole Back to the Future thing because that song takes me back to that movie, and that movie takes me back to a moment like the pictures I sent you. Do the one with the flux capacitor behind me first, because that's what this movie does to me. This moment, look, I don't think I've smiled that big since my kid was born, folks. That was 13 years ago this week. Like, this is back at whenever it was, back in earlier this year. And I'm just like too giddy for words that I have my fat ass inside a DeLorean time machine. The flux capacitors fluxing, things are working, everything's good, and I'm just and the time circuits are on in front of me. That's in the picture too. That's in there. There they are. It turns out I didn't have the right date on. I thought I had the right date on there, when I told you that, but obviously I didn't. But yeah, you guys all saw. I interviewed Adam last year, Adam Conscious last year. He owns his own DeLorean time machine, so I went out there to North Hollywood and did the thing. And you guys seen those pictures 100 times, and I mean, that right there. For those of you that have been following me for a long, long time, I don't know if I told the story on air with anybody or not, or even with you yet. I went to the screening of the 25th anniversary of this movie, which would have been 2010. And it was at the Vista Theater. God bless Hollywood, old Hollywood. If you know what Vista is, for those of you PWG fans that are out there watching this, and God bless you if you're watching the Casa channel because we love you. Literally down the street from the JCC. That's where the Vista Theater is. It's like right there where Sunset meets, wherever the hell that thing is, where the freaking Scientology Center is. It's like right on that corner. Like that corner's good. Everything past that corner, Scientology, and then okay, we'll just go by those guys. And then you have like Children's Hospital and Kaiser. That's all hospitals out there. So the Vista's like right there. So if you get too messed up at the Vista Theater, you can go get checked out some hospital or another. It's all good. And the coordinator of the event had a DeLorean out front for photo ops. Don't touch it. Just sit there and pose and do the thing, and you're good to go, right? So you do that, and I wrangled a put my ass in the seat picture. Trouble is, I had just discovered the use of smartphones, and it was a POS model Android that took the picture of the DeLorean, and that Android crashed, as did my picture. So I waited 10 years, more than 10 years, for that picture that you just guys saw a second. There it is. So that one is saved on multiple devices now, because if I lose that picture, people will die, starting with my own sense of density or destiny. And by the way, if you guys didn't get that joke, him telling the story, go watch the movie and then come back, because damn it, you guys are too young for the room. For real. Jeez. There's ridiculous amounts of t-shirts just on that word alone. Like, as a picture of George's head in the sky, density. That's all you need to know. So, and yes, as soon as there was a thing where the connection was made between me and Adam the DeLorean, we thought, I really like these movies. I really like this saga. Let's get the logo looking like that. And I literally typed up freaking, there you go, baby. There it is. Cheap ass plug. There you go. I literally went on a freaking text finder I couldn't tell you the website's name, that saved my life, and typed that out and sent it to Greg Cherry. I said, help me make better. He added the arrows. Boom. There it is. So yeah, please buy every one of those shirts. Give it to your friends. My dad's got one in blue. It's pretty. So make sure you buy those at teespring.com/Jeff Meacham Network for those of you that couldn't understand what the hell Jay was trying to say at the top of the show when he was plugging his own damn shirt. Teespring.com/stores/Jeff Meacham Network, because
yes. I usually get it right on all the other broadcasts. I just got a little mush mouth this morning.
Hey, you know what? You're
talking about... The computer isn't fully booted up yet, but it's still trying to run at a high speed.
Yeah. You're talking about quite probably the closest thing to a perfect movie that exists in the world. So you're bound to be a little flummoxed.
Yeah,
So But yes, now that I've done my spiel, I will gladly turn it back. This is your show. I can't talk enough about these movies. You know that. And
yeah. I mean, obviously, the Back to the Future trilogy and the original movie, there's so much to be gotten into that we can't do it all in one show. We've got to spread it out over the three different movies, the two more that we have to do.
Yes.
The biggest thing that I feel we should touch on, though, coming out of the original movie, is the Crispin Glover thing.
Well, there's two things, but I think you want to talk about the other hypocrisy at the end of the trilogy, right?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
We have to get through the saga first, man.
Okay.
Don't get too far ahead of ourselves.
I'm just saying. I mean, we see it right away in this one too, so let's not kid ourselves. But
right, but we've got to play it out.
Build it.
Yes, build the suspense. If you build it, they will come.
But
gotta draw money. They'll be back tomorrow.
But yes, Mr. Glover. I mean, wow.
For starters, could there have been a better George McFly? Crispin Glover was so perfect as George McFly. Yes. He nailed the nerdy. He nailed the confident. I've seen Crispin Glover in a few other movies over the years, but he's definitely one of those actors that when I think Crispin Glover, I think George McFly.
Yep.
And the way that he got done for the sequels was just so dirty.
Yeah. But there's always two sides to a story.
I know.
And I I tend to see both views only because at the time they were negotiating, which would have been 1989, 1988, whatever it was, Crispin was asking for money that Gale and Spielberg felt that he wasn't ready for yet. He wasn't Michael J. Fox. He wasn't Christopher Lloyd. I dare say he wasn't even Tom Wilson, who you can't do without the lead villain. So those three guys are going to make a little bit more if I'm producing or casting. Yes, George McFly was a key ingredient to the success of part one, and I do feel that it's one thing to kill him off. No problem with that with me. I mean, if you're going to kill the guy off, have him be a tombstone, and that's all you see of him. Don't put Jeffrey Weissman in a fake nose and fake prosthetic face and hang him up and down on a damn ortholev that they invented for the movie. Let's not kid ourselves for part two. And do that. They did him dirty. I 100% agree. But at the time, there wasn't a Screen Actors Guild thing saying they couldn't do that. And they felt they had to do something. Was it the right thing to do morally? Absolutely not. Was it the right thing to do contractually to get the movie going and get part 2 and 3 done? Yeah, it was. And Crispin sued. He won. They don't do that shit no more.
Yeah, and then they totally recycled footage from the original when they were in 55 and used Crispin's likeness anyways.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing. It's what, like I said, it's one thing if you're gonna, it even said, in the behind the scenes features on part 2, the most recent release, whatever the hell it was, 35, 40, whatever it was. Actually, it was I had 30th. The one completion was 35. That's what George is a tombstone in part 2. It's like, okay, if he's a tombstone in part 2, then he's a tombstone. Not we're going to use recycled footage of Chris. Not we're going to hang some guy upside down and put a bunch of fiction on his face. But you have to draw a line somewhere. But yes, you have to move forward contractually and conceptually. But you also have to have a little bit of moral high ground there. And they didn't meet that at all. So I totally get that they did him dirty. But I also get the owner's side of it, like, well, we got to do something. And at the time, they felt that was what they had to do because they had to move the first, whatever it was, 20 minutes of part 2 along with George in the picture. That way we remember, oh, yeah, George is here. That's right. Oh, wait, now he's not here because he's been shot. Part 3, no reason for him to be there at all. No reason for him to be there. He could be late getting to the car. He could something. But to have Jeff completely dressed up in as 85 Happy George, bad, wrong, nope.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, it's good. It's good. I'm trying to think. I think that's a good place to cut our Back to the Future review today.
For now.
Because if we get too deep into it, then there's not stuff to talk about for part 2 and part 3.
So what you're saying is there's more to come.
Of course. It's a trilogy. We're just barely cracking open the book of Back to the Future. We're getting the I was just going to say we are just about to get the paper off of Gray Sports Almanac, sir. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. What do you guys out there think of Back to the Future? Do you guys agree that aside from the original Star Wars trilogy, that this is the greatest trilogy in history or in the future?
Or do you think like me that it's better than the Star Wars trilogy anyway? Because I do. I always will. It's
a tough one. It's really a tough one because if we break it down like this, okay? A New Hope, Back to the Future. Man, they're like neck and neck as far as how solid and great the storytelling is.
Right.
A lot of exposition in the beginning, like you said, to help make sense of what's to come.
Right.
Slow builds a little bit, but such perfect movies.
Right.
Empire Strikes Back, Back to the Future.
See,
I think Empire Strikes Back narrowly edges it out because of the big reveal that Vader is Luke's father.
oh,
You know,
spoiler alert.
Oh, please. If people don't know that out after 41 years, they can just get the hell off the channel.
Right, for real.
But that one revelation just narrowly moves it ahead. However, Back to the Future 3 is definitely better than Jedi.
Yeah.
So you've got one where they're on even grounds, and then you got 1 and 1.
Right.
So they're just neck and neck there.
Yeah.
If you talk about the special editions where they totally jacked up and added stuff they didn't need to add, okay, Back to the Future is going to take it. If you're talking the original trilogy, sorry.
I encourage you young folk, and I'm talking about people that are younger than he and I. Where the hell is he? There he is, over here. He and I, not the king and I, that's way old. He and I, find yourselves a working VCR and go ask your grown folk, your parentals, can I please watch the VHSs of the original Star Wars trilogy? Watch those, and then watch. Back to the Future hasn't changed as far as the layout on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, 4K. It just looks prettier. Whatever. The basic story and the bonus shit doesn't affect the movie at all in Back to the Future trilogy. So find your old VCRs in your parents' attic up there, past the 3 pictures of grandma, nobody's allowed to see no more. And, put the VHS copies of Star Wars in, all 3, and then you guys let us know after the weekend, after WrestleMania, because I'm going to be tired after WrestleMania. So just get to the end of WrestleMania. But,
You're going to be on my channel 6 times between now and WrestleMania.
When does Ducks end?
Ducks begins on the 10th.
Jesus Christ. I'm going to be going with you past Mania. Oh, my God. No sleep till the 13th. Anyway.
But what do you guys think of Back to the Future? The original. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Don't leave your thoughts on 2 and 3. Save that for the next couple days.
Right.
Let me know what you guys think of the original Back to the Future in the comment box below, as always. I might just feature your comment on April's edition of Renegade Recap at the end of the month, once I know my schedule and we can book a date. # book the DeLorean.
Rent the DeLorean.
Rent the DeLorean.
Thank you. Adam, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meacham, for joining me today.
Dude,
as
thank
always.
you for inviting me into so much of your shows. I mean, I'm going to be on for 6 of the next 9 days. Like, for real, it's kind of bonkers. Or actually, 6 of the next
12
days. Yeah, which is like I'm going to be on for the first half of this. It's crazy. So I appreciate it, and I love these movies and how much I love the Mighty Ducks. So
it's all about sharing the love, and if there's the love of the franchise, the love of the movie, I want to convey that on the shows.
Yes.
But thank you for joining me once again, Mr. Meacham.
Of course, sir. Yes.
Until tomorrow, where of course roads, where we're going, we don't need roads.